What is power and how does it shape empires, nations, and individuals? Power, a word so profound and yet so elusive. Throughout history, its allure has been irresistible. It has led to the rise and fall of empires, shaped the destiny of nations, and transformed ordinary individuals into figures of monumental influence. To understand power, we must look beyond the obvious, beyond the well-trodden paths of history. We must delve into the shadows where figures both revered and reviled have wielded their influence. One such group that presents a fascinating study is that of dictators. These are individuals who, through their charisma, cunning, or sheer force of will, have risen to command entire nations. Their reigns, often marked by fear, oppression, and grandiosity, represent the very epitome of power's potential. Their stories, while often obscured by the bright lights of mainstream history, offer a unique lens through which to examine power's reach and impact. Let's explore the lives of 5 dictators who, despite their obscurity, wielded immense power. Our first stop is 16th century Russia with Tsar Ivan IV, known as Ivan the Terrible. Born in 1530, Ivan ascended the throne at the tender age of 3, thrust into a world of power and politics. His formative years were marked by violence and chaos as rival boyars or nobles struggled for control. Ivan officially took the reins of power in 1547, crowning himself as the first Tsar of Russia and commencing a reign that was as transformative as it was terrifying. Ivan sought to centralize power, subjugating the boyars and establishing a police force known as the oprichniki. These men, loyal only to Ivan, enforced his will across the land with brutal efficiency. Yet Ivan was not merely a tyrant. He was a complex figure, a visionary who sought to modernize Russia. He introduced new laws, promoted trade, and even attempted to reform the Orthodox Church. However, his progressive initiatives were often overshadowed by his violent tendencies. He is remembered for the massacre of Novgorod, a horrific event where thousands were slaughtered on his orders. Ivan's reign was also marked by personal tragedy. His beloved first wife, Anastasia, died under mysterious circumstances, an event that seemed to unhinge him. In a fit of rage, he even killed his own son, heir to the throne, forever staining his legacy with patricide. Ivan the Terrible's rule ended in 1584, leaving behind a Russia forever changed. His centralized power paved the way for the autocratic rule that would dominate Russian politics for centuries. His brutal methods, however, left a scar on the nation's psyche, a grim reminder of the costs of absolute power. Ivan's legacy remains a dark chapter in Russia's past, a testament to the destructive potential of power. His story serves as a cautionary tale, a stark reminder of the danger that lurks when power is concentrated in the hands of one individual, no matter how visionary or well-intentioned they might be. Next, we travel to 19th century Belgium under the rule of King Leopold II. A figure of immense power and influence, Leopold's reign was marked by his insatiable ambition for wealth and territory. Yet, his most notorious claim to fame or infamy is his ruthless exploitation of the Congo, an area he claimed as his personal property and named the Congo Free State. In the heart of Africa, Leopold saw a vast, untapped reservoir of natural resources, particularly rubber and ivory. His desire to exploit these resources led to the implementation of a brutal system of forced labor. Congolese men, women, and even children were coerced into harvesting rubber under horrific conditions. Workdays were long, the quotas were unattainable, and the punishment for failing to meet them was often severe, ranging from whipping to mutilation. Leopold's rule was characterized by a culture of fear and violence. His private army, the Force Publique, was tasked with enforcing his brutal policies. They were known for their cruelty, often taking the hands of those who failed to meet rubber quotas as a grim form of punishment. This dark era, known as the Congo Horrors, resulted in the death of millions of Congolese people. Yet the world largely turned a blind eye to these atrocities. Leopold cunningly portrayed himself as a philanthropist, claiming his actions were part of a civilizing mission to bring progress to Africa. It wasn't until investigative journalist Ede Morel exposed the truth that the international community began to take notice. Despite the eventual international outcry, the damage had been done. The exploitation and atrocities committed during Leopold's reign decimated the Congo, both in terms of its population and its cultural heritage. Even after the Congo gained independence in 1960, the legacy of Leopold's rule continued to cast a long, dark shadow over the nation. Leopold's reign left a scar on the Congo that endures to this day. Shifting to the New World, we find ourselves in the Dominican Republic under the dictatorship of Rafael Trujillo. Rafael Trujillo, also known as El Jefe, ascended to power in the early 20th century. A cunning and ambitious man, Trujillo climbed the ranks of the Dominican military before seizing control of the government in a coup d'etat in 1930. From that moment on, Trujillo held the reins of power with an iron fist, ruling for over 3 decades. His reign was marked by a brutal suppression of any form of dissent. Trujillo's regime was notorious for its use of torture, imprisonment, and assassination to quell opposition. His secret police, the SIM, were a constant, terrifying presence, instilling fear and obedience among the populace. Trujillo's rule wasn't just about maintaining power, though. He sought to reshape the Dominican Republic in his image. He launched extensive infrastructure projects, building roads, schools, and hospitals. He even renamed the capital city after himself. But these developments came at a steep cost. The Trujillo era was marked by extreme wealth disparity, with the vast majority of the nation's wealth concentrated in the hands of the dictator and his cronies. His reign also had a profound impact on the Dominican Republic's international standing. Trujillo's brutal methods and blatant human rights abuses drew the ire of the international community. Yet his anti-communist stance during the Cold War era provided him a degree of protection from international intervention. The end of Trujillo's reign was as violent as his rule. In 1961, he was assassinated in a plot orchestrated by disgruntled members of his own military. His death marked the end of one of the longest-standing dictatorships in Latin American history. Trujillo's reign ended in violence, a fitting end for a brutal dictator. The legacy of Rafael Trujillo continues to cast a long shadow over the Dominican Republic, a grim reminder of the cost of unchecked power. Our journey takes us next to Uganda, where Idi Amin ruled with an iron fist. Idi Amin Dada Umi, a man of sheer brutality and seemingly limitless power, seized control of Uganda in January 1971. His rise to power was swift and unexpected, following a military coup that ousted then-President Obote. Amin, a former boxer and soldier, used his military prowess to solidify his rule and establish an autocratic regime. His reign, stretching over 8 years, was marked by gross human rights abuses, political repression, and corruption. Amin's rule was characterized by a bizarre blend of capriciousness and brutality. He was known for his unpredictable behavior, often making outlandish claims such as being the uncrowned King of Scotland. Yet beneath this erratic facade, Amin's rule was marked by brutal tactics. His regime was responsible for the torture, murder, and forced disappearance of an estimated 300,000 to 500,000 people. Ethnic and political groups were systematically targeted in a reign of terror that spared no one. But the violence was not confined within Uganda's borders. Amin initiated the Uganda-Tanzania War in 1978, a conflict that would eventually lead to his downfall. In the aftermath of the war, Amin was forced into exile. He spent the last years of his life in Saudi Arabia, living in relative obscurity until his death in 2003. But the scars of his rule remain. Today, the legacy of Amin's rule is still felt in Uganda. The country continues to grapple with the aftermath of his regime, struggling to heal from the deep wounds inflicted during this dark chapter of its history. In many ways, Amin's reign is a stark reminder of the destructive power of a despot unchecked, a lesson that is as relevant today as it was then. His rule serves as a grim testament to the depths to which humanity can sink when power is wielded without restraint or accountability. Amin's reign of terror left a lasting impact on Uganda, a grim reminder of the dangers of unchecked power. Finally, we arrive in modern-day Iraq, where Saddam Hussein's reign of terror still lingers in memory. Born into a poor family, Hussein's rise to power was nothing short of astonishing. He was a political chameleon, deftly navigating the treacherous waters of Iraqi politics until he claimed the presidency in 1979. Hussein's reign was marked by an iron fist and oppressive tactics. He led with fear, using secret police, torture, and mass executions to silence any opposition. His rule had profound impacts on Iraq and the Middle East. The Iran-Iraq War, the invasion of Kuwait, and the subsequent Gulf War left deep scars on the region. His actions led to economic sanctions that plunged Iraq into destitution and isolation. Hussein's reign ended in defeat and death, a stark reminder of the destructive potential of power. His legacy serves as a chilling testament to the darkness that can descend when power falls into the wrong hands.